At the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, my sister's scream sliced through the music and the pop of champagne corks. "Oh my God, we are finished." My mother crumpled onto the marble floor like a sack of bricks. My father stood frozen, his face as white as the desert sand outside. 3 minutes earlier, he had been shouting into the phone, "Blair, where the hell are you?" I had answered in a calm, steady voice. "Did the family enjoy my gift? My name is Blair Harrington. I am 28 years old, and I run a high-end ceramic studio in Phoenix. To the Harringtons of North Scottsdale, the biggest real estate dynasty in Arizona, I have always been the failure who plays in mud for a living. They have spent years reminding me I would never measure up to my brother, the chief financial officer, or my perfect sister. What they did not know was that for the last 3 years, I had been quietly tracking every dollar they tried to hide from me. That one box delivered at exactly 11:30 on the night of December 31st changed everything. And it all started 10 days earlier, when I came home ahead of schedule to help with the biggest New Year's Eve party the desert had ever seen, thinking that maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. At the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, my sister's scream cut through the music and the soft pop of champagne bottles. "Oh my God, we are finished." My mother collapsed onto the marble floor like a sack of bricks. My father stood frozen, his face as pale as the desert sand outside. 3 minutes earlier, he had been shouting into the phone, calling out, "Amelia, where are you?" I had answered with a calm, steady voice. "Did the family enjoy my gift?" My name is Amelia Rowland. I am 28 years old, and I run a high-end ceramic studio in Phoenix. To the Rowlands of North Scottsdale, the largest real estate dynasty in Arizona, I have always been the disappointment, the one who plays with clay instead of building an empire. They spent years reminding me I would never measure up to my brother, the chief financial officer, or my perfect sister. What they never realized was that for the last 3 years I had quietly tracked every dollar they tried to hide from me. That single box delivered at exactly 11:30 on the night of December 31st changed everything. And it all began 10 days earlier when I came home sooner than planned to help prepare for the biggest New Year's Eve party the desert had ever seen, hoping that maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. If you have ever had a family that looked down on you for choosing your own path, share your story in the comments. Tell me where you are watching from. I read every single one. Keep watching, because what happened next even I could not have written. 10 days before New Year's Eve, my mother's text was still sitting unanswered on my phone. "Come home early, Evelyn. This party is going to be the biggest one yet. Everyone from the coast to the canyons will be here. I need you." It was the first time in years she had asked for help like that, almost pleading. I stared at the message on my screen in my studio, surrounded by half-glazed vases waiting for the kiln. Maybe this was her way of saying things could change. So, I packed a duffel with a few changes of clothes, wrapped the handmade pottery piece I had been saving for my dad, a sleek obsidian bowl etched with saguaro silhouettes, and hit the gas on my old Jeep. The drive from Phoenix to North Scottsdale took just under 2 hours, the Superstition Mountains fading in the rear view as the sprawl gave way to gated estates and endless golf course greens. By late afternoon, I turned onto the long gravel driveway, lined with ironwood trees, the sun dipping low and setting the desert horizon ablaze in orange. The house rose ahead like a fortress of glass and stone, its flat roof disappearing into the McDowell Peaks. Even from the gate, I could see preparations in full motion. Crews in khakis, stringing lights along the infinity pool. A rented fireworks rig rising beside the outdoor amphitheater. Massive white tents covering the back lawn for the overflow crowd. This was not just a party. This was the Rowland family's annual declaration of dominance, drawing developers from Los Angeles, investors from Dallas, and every branch of the family tree that mattered. I parked beside the 6-car garage, grabbed my bag and the wrapped bowl, and headed toward the front doors. They opened before I even knocked. And there stood Rosa, our housekeeper of 15 years, her apron dusted with flour from whatever she was preparing in the kitchen. "Miss Evelyn, look at you. It had been far too long." She pulled me into a quick hug, her silver cross necklace cool against my cheek. Rosa had always been the one bright spot in that house, slipping me extra tamales when my mother was not looking, and asking real questions about my latest glaze experiments. "Your mother is out back with the event planner. Come in, come in." I stepped into the cool marble foyer. The air was scented with fresh sage from the diffusers and something citrusy baking somewhere deep inside the house. The place had been updated again, New abstract desert paintings lined the walls. A massive copper chandelier hung over the staircase, probably costing more than my yearly rent. It hit me the way it always did. This was wealth built on land deals and luxury flips, every square foot shouting control. But I pushed that thought aside, focusing on the bowl in my hands. Maybe my father would finally hold it, feel the weight of the clay I had shaped myself. Rosa guided me through the living room, past floor-to-ceiling windows framing the saguaros outside. Voices drifted from the kitchen, planners calling out orders about ice sculptures and caviar stations. My mother appeared from the hallway, clipboard in hand. Her blonde bob perfectly in place, dressed in white linen like she was already posing for the party photos. "Evelyn, you made it." No hug. Just a quick scan of my jeans and linen shirt like she was evaluating an open house listing. "Guest suites are ready in the East Wing. Your old room is under renovation. We are turning it into a home gym. We need the space for the trainers coming in." The words landed like gravel under tires. That room had been mine for 18 years. The terracotta walls I had painted myself. The shelves lined with my first lopsided mugs from high school pottery class. Now it was nothing but space. I swallowed the knot tightening in my throat. "Sounds practical, Mom. I brought something for Dad. Thought he might want to see it before things get chaotic." She barely glanced at the wrapped package in my hands. "He is in his study with Lucas and the others finishing the numbers for the toast speech. Do not interrupt unless it is quick." Her tone was all business, the same tone she used on contractors who underbid. I nodded and walked down the hallway, the bowl feeling heavier with every step. The study door was slightly open, a sliver of warm lamplight spilling across the floor while low voices drifted through the gap. I raised my hand to knock, but my father's words stopped me cold. "Evelyn needs to face facts. That mud hobby of hers is not bringing in more than a few thousand a month, if that. We are doing this for her own good." My breath caught. I froze, hand hovering the bowl, suddenly feeling like solid stone. Through the narrow opening I could see them all. My father, Richard Rowland, leaning back in his leather chair, silver hair glowing under the desk lamp. My mother, Caroline, perched on the armrest, clipboard forgotten. My brother Lucas, 34 years old and already the company's chief financial officer, tapping numbers into a tablet. My sister Naomi, 31, the real estate attorney who could close any deal with a smile and a signature. And across from them, a man in a crisp navy suit I did not recognize. The financial advisor they had brought in from Denver, his briefcase open and filled with spreadsheets. "It is perfect timing," Lucas said, his voice smooth as the scotch swirling in his glass. "New Year's Eve, a full house, aunts, uncles, the whole network." Richard gives the speech about family unity. Then we pivot. Show her the projections. Her studio compared to an entry-level position at Rowland Development. Entry-level marketing, $75,000 base salary plus benefits. She signs the relinquishment right there in front of everyone. Dad nodded, steepling his fingers. "Exactly. The intervention is already scripted. Caroline, you handle the emotional angle. Express concern for her future. Make it sound like tough love." My mother leaned in, her voice softening just enough to sell the performance. "We will say we have worried for years watching her waste that business degree on crafts, but we are here to help her get back on track." The advisor cleared his throat and flipped a page in his binder. "Financially, it is airtight. Based on her apartment size and the fact that she has no visible assets, she is scraping by on $35,000 a year at most. Compare that to corporate stability. She will see reason. And the trust transfer of $28 million into the Cayman vehicle by the end of the quarter protects the core holdings from instability." He glanced toward Lucas, who smirked at the mention of my so-called instability. "You mean we cannot have her waking up one day and suing for a bigger share?" Naomi laughed sharp and bright. "Oh, please remember Thanksgiving." She walks in wearing that thrift store caftan, talking about her glaze firing schedule like it is a board meeting. If we do not step in now, she will drag the entire name down. "The Whitman girl just made partner at her firm and our sister is out here finger-painting pots for Etsy." My knees weakened. I pressed against the wall, the bowl clutched to my chest like a shield. They were not just dismissing my work. They were erasing me. The relinquishment meant signing away any claim to the family trust, the one Dad had promised, would be shared equally when we all turned 30. And the Cayman transfers hiding assets offshore right under my nose. I had suspected something was wrong for years, the way Dad dodged every question about estate planning. But this was theft, dressed up as protection. Protection from the daughter who dared to create instead of close deals. Dad's voice dropped lower. Once she signs, we move fast. Rosa clears the old room that night. Tools, sketches, all of it goes to storage or donation. No more half measures. She commits or she walks away clean. The room fell silent, glasses clinking softly in agreement. Naomi lifted hers in a toast. To fresh starts for all of us. Heat surged across my face, a roar building in my ears. 28 million. My inheritance funneled away because I chose clay over contracts. The bowl slipped from my numb fingers, thudding gently against the rug. I caught it just in time, but the sound was enough. A chair scraped inside. Panic shot through me. I could not face them. Not like this. Not with the truth burning holes through my chest. Backing away silent as a shadow, I slipped down the hall past the kitchen where Rosa hummed over empanadas, oblivious to the storm upstairs. My bag was still by the front door. I grabbed it, eased the heavy oak door open, and stepped into the cooling desert night. The Jeep's engine rumbled to life, the soft headlights cutting through the fading dusk as I rolled down the long driveway. No goodbyes. No explanations. Just the hum of tires on blacktop carrying me back toward Phoenix. The wrapped bowl sat on the passenger seat like a lie I could not bring myself to open. I pulled over at the first rest stop off the Interstate 10, my hands shaking too hard to keep driving. The engine ticked as it cooled under a sky crowded with stars. I switched off the headlights and finally let the tears come. Maya answered on the second ring. "Evelyn, it is 2 a.m. Where are you?" I could barely form words. They are cutting me out completely, and they plan to do it publicly. New Year's Eve. She did not waste time offering comfort. "Tell me exactly what you heard." I repeated every word. The disinheritance papers. The 28 million moved through the trust to fund the gym conversion. Silence from her end. Then she said, "You still have the forensic files." 3 years earlier, right after Dad claimed he had misplaced a folder of trust documents I needed for my taxes, I hired a discreet accounting firm in Tempe. They had been feeding me copies ever since. Bank transfers. Shell company ledgers. Emails between Lucas and the advisor. 70% of the puzzle was already in my safe. Maya's voice steadied me. "You are 45 minutes from the studio. Get home. We finish this." I wiped my face, started the car, and merged back onto the empty interstate. The warehouse district was silent when I rolled up the metal gate. I flipped on the work lights. Rows of shelves glowed, empty spaces where pieces had shipped out weeks before. A single kiln still radiated warmth from the day's firing. The whole studio smelled of silica and success, not failure. I kicked off my shoes and went straight to the office corner. The safe sat behind a stack of blank slabs. I turned the combination. The door opened with a soft click. 3 thick expandable folders, 2 encrypted drives, 1 printed timeline covered in red ink. I spread everything across the big table where I usually trimmed bowls. Bank statements showed transfers starting 18 months earlier. Round numbers. Always on Fridays. Always routed through the Caymans. Emails from Lucas to the advisor. Make sure Evelyn never sees these. A draft of the new trust amendment with my name crossed out in black marker. I opened my laptop and pulled up the studio's actual numbers, the ones my family had never bothered to ask about. Last fiscal year, $872,000 in gross revenue. This year on pace for $1.44 million, private commissions from collectors in Dubai and London, and from half the tech wives in San Francisco. All the cash flow I had kept quiet because I did not need their approval. The clock on the wall read 3:12 in the morning. 8 days until the party. 8 days to fill the last 30% of the gaps, tie off every loose end, and package everything in a way none of them would ever forget. I brewed coffee strong enough to strip glaze and began making quiet calls. The forensic accountant answered on the first ring. He had been waiting. A tax attorney I had met at a gallery opening owed me a favor. By sunrise, I had appointments lined up and a delivery service scheduled for the 31st. I stood in the middle of the studio as light crept through the high windows. The shelves might look empty to them, but every missing vase, every sold-out collection, had paid for the evidence now covering the table. They wanted to prove I was broke and broken. I was about to prove the opposite and take their entire house of cards down with me. The decision settled in my chest like a perfectly centered lump of clay. No more hoping they would change, no more second-guessing my worth. They had drawn the line in the sand. I was about to bury them in it. The next morning, I was already sitting in my tax attorney's downtown office. Adrian Clark wore the same navy suit he had on the night we met at an opening in Scottsdale. He slid a fresh legal pad across the glass table. "Show me what you have." I dumped 3 folders and both encrypted drives in front of him. He let out a low whistle. "You were not exaggerating. This is a federal case wrapped in a bow. We spent 4 hours cross-referencing every transfer." He flagged the final missing pieces, 2 wire confirmations, and the signed amendment page that officially removed me. His paralegal pulled them from public filings before lunch. By 2 o'clock, the binder stood 200 pages thick, tabbed, highlighted, and notarized in triplicate. 2 encrypted USB drives joined the package, 1 master, 1 backup. Adrian leaned back. "You are sure you want to deliver this on the 31st, 11:30 sharp, right before the countdown?" I said. He did not argue. My next stop was the custom wood shop in South Phoenix I had used for gallery crates. The owner still owed me for a $10,000 installation last spring. I sketched the box on butcher paper: black walnut blind dovetail joints, brass hinges. The Roland crest laser etched onto the lid. The interior lined in charcoal suede, a recessed compartment for the binder, a velvet tray for the drives. He promised completion in 6 days and discreet white glove delivery on the 31st. I paid in cash and left. Back at the studio, I opened the group chat I had kept alive since college. Maya, Tristan, Holly, and Liam, the 4 people who had never once called my work a hobby. I typed, "I need the Red Rock House in Sedona for New Year's Eve. 10 of us maximum. Money does not matter," Maya replied within seconds. "Already booked it last month when you hinted you might bail on your family." "You are welcome." Tristan sent a champagne emoji. Holly dropped the rental link. Liam simply wrote, "We have your back, always." He also mentioned he had booked private chefs, a mixologist, and a local band that played desert rock under the stars. The villa had a heated infinity pool overlooking the canyons and enough bedrooms so no one had to share. I paid the full amount up front, no cancellations. The warehouse lights hummed overhead as I sat at the glazing table with a single sheet of heavy cream stock and my favorite fountain pen. I wrote slowly, every letter deliberate. "Richard, Caroline, Lucas, Naomi, you spent years telling me I would never be enough. Tonight you will learn what enough actually costs. The originals are already with the Internal Revenue Service and the Family Trust Attorney. What you are holding are copies. Happy New Year. There will not be another one from me. Evelyn." I blotted the ink, folded the page once, and slid it into a matching cream envelope. I sealed it with red wax and the same crest that would be etched onto the box lid. I walked the studio floor one last time, running my fingers along the cool shelves. The kiln ticked softly as it cooled from the final test firing. Every tool was in its place, every surface wiped clean. The studio had never looked more ready. I set the envelope on top of the binder, closed the suede flap, and locked the prototype box the woodworker had delivered that afternoon. It weighed exactly 11 pounds, heavy enough to feel like judgment. For the first time in years, my hands were steady. Every step had landed exactly where it needed to. The clay was centered, the walls pulled high, the rim finished clean. All that remained was the fire. I turned off the lights, set the alarm, and walked out into the warm desert night. 8 days felt like plenty. New Year's Eve arrived. Back at the mansion on Cactus Road, the desert estate glittered like a mirage beneath a sky already black and star-filled. A convoy of black SUVs and white Rolls-Royces crawled up the half-mile driveway, headlights sweeping across saguaros wrapped in tiny white lights. Valets in crisp white jackets sprinted between cars, doors slamming in perfect rhythm. A crimson carpet unfurled from the motor court to the double-height bronze doors, lined on both sides by towering torches that hissed and flared in the cool December air. Inside, the temperature was set to 72, but the energy felt volcanic. The DJ, flown in from Los Angeles, stood on a raised platform of smoked mirror white headphones, glowing as he dropped a custom remix that made the crystal chandeliers tremble. 3 bars glowed like altars. One poured only 1996 Dom Perignon from massive bottles. Another served aged Japanese whiskey in hand-cut glasses. The third mixed cocktails that smoked with dry ice and flashed neon under black light. Women in liquid gold and midnight blue sequins spun across the acrylic floor laid over the infinity pool. Each step sent ripples of colored light dancing beneath their heels. Caroline drifted through the crowd like royalty, her gold silk column gown catching every strobe, diamonds at her throat scattering light like paparazzi flashes. She laughed too loudly, touched too many arms, and repeated the same line to every face she greeted. "Biggest party we have ever thrown. Everyone who matters is here tonight." Richard stood beneath the massive iron chandelier in the cigar lounge, Cuban smoke curling around his head as he promised first-look deals on the Dubai Marina project and the Vegas high-rise. Lucas worked the investors in his midnight blue peak lapel tuxedo, voice smooth eyes, already scanning for the next handshake. Naomi posed on the grand staircase with her influencer entourage, phone held high, diamond choker flashing each time the ring light burst. A 75-inch screen dominated the far wall above the double-sided fireplace, cycling slow-motion drone footage of the mansion at sunset. The countdown clock beneath it read 11:27 in the evening when the front doors opened one final time. A courier in a tailored black suit and white gloves stepped inside carrying a single object, a black walnut box with brass hinges gleaming, the Roland crest laser etched dead center on the lid. Security recognized the pre-approved vendor code and waved him through without a question. He set the box on the white marble console beneath a 7-foot arrangement of white orchids, bowed once and disappeared. Caroline spotted it instantly. Her smile sharpened. "Oh my goodness, everyone look! Our little Potter finally remembered us." She clapped her manicured hands like she had just won a prize. Evelyn sent a gift after all. She carried the box to the center of the living room herself, heels clicking, placing it on the ottoman as if unveiling a trophy. Naomi snatched the thick cream ribbon. "Probably another crooked bowl she will hide in the guest bathroom." She yanked. The lid lifted with a soft magnetic sigh, revealing charcoal suede lining, a sealed cream envelope stamped with red wax, a 200-page black binder, and 2 matte black USB drives nestled in velvet. Lucas rolled his eyes, already half drunk on victory. $10 says it is some sob story video begging to come home. He grabbed one of the drives and shoved it into the media hub beneath the screen. The drone footage vanished. The room lights dimmed automatically for the surprise presentation. Page 1 filled the wall in crisp 4K wire transfer confirmation, $28,000 to a Grand Cayman account, $409,887 in another. Page 2, an email thread titled, "Finalize removal of ER before December 31st. Page 3, the trust amendment with Richard Rowland and Lucas Rowland's signatures in bold blue ink. Page 4, IRS, Form 211 whistleblower acknowledgement stamped received. The music kept pulsing for 3 full seconds before someone managed to shut it off. Silence crashed down like a guillotine. Naomi's scream tore through the hush. "Oh my God, we are ruined." Her champagne flute slipped from her manicured fingers and exploded into 1,000 crystal shards across the travertine floor. She stared at the screen as if it might reach out and strike her. Caroline took one step back, her gold gown suddenly too tight. Her knees buckled. 2 hedge fund wives lunged to catch her but were too slow. Her head clipped the ottoman corner with a dull thud before hands steadied her shoulders. Someone yelled for ice. Richard stood, frozen face the color of printer paper, eyes locked on his own signature, blown up 10 feet tall. The vein in his temple throbbed so violently it looked ready to burst. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The screen auto-cycled on a 30-second loop Adrian had programmed for this exact moment. Account numbers, transfer dates, advisor notes, and the line that read, "Submitted to Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Division." A tech billionaire near the back whispered, "That is federal crime territory." His wife already had her phone out recording. Lucas lunged for the remote, tripped over Naomi's abandoned heels, and sent it skittering across the polished floor. He crawled after it on all fours while the loop played on, relentless and merciless. Guests stepped back, forming a perfect circle of judgment. Naomi spun toward the nearest exit, only to find it blocked by a wall of tuxedos and sequins. Every phone in the room pointed at her like a weapon. Her mascara began its descent in perfect black rivers. Caroline came to on the floor, gasping, clutching Richard's ankle. He finally found his voice raw and torn. "Turn it off. For the love of God, turn it off." A staff member yanked the drive, but the video had already auto-uploaded to 30 private stories and one very public Dropbox link. The countdown clock hit 11:59 and 40 seconds. No one moved toward the terrace for the $40,000 fireworks show. The desert wind rattled the 40-foot glass walls. 80 of the most powerful people in Arizona stood frozen, watching the Roland Empire crack open in real time. And 2 hours north, under a completely different sky, I lifted my glass to the moon and waited for the phones to start ringing. My phone erupted at 11:57, exactly 3 minutes before their world flipped upside down. I was standing barefoot on the warm sandstone terrace of the Sedona Villa. Red rock cathedrals glowed blood orange under the moonlight. The infinity pool shimmered turquoise, reflecting 1,000 fairy lights strung through the mesquite trees. Our private chef had just delivered the last course caviar spoons and gold leaf-dusted chocolate spheres, and the mixologist was free, pouring 2008 Cristal into vintage coupe glasses that caught the light like prisms. Naomi's name flashed first. Her contact photo still the same from 5 years earlier, laughing in a bikini on a yacht. I let it ring until voicemail claimed it. Lucas called 30 seconds later. Same fate. Then Caroline. Her face frozen in that too smooth Botox smile from a charity gala years ago. I watched the screen throb against the teak table and did nothing. Last came Richard's name. No photo, just the word Dad in all caps. I answered, tapped speaker, and held the phone high so everyone on the terrace could hear. Maya, Tristan, Holly, Liam, and the rest of our 10-person chosen family formed a loose semicircle behind me. Champagne glasses paused midair. The roar that blasted through the speaker nearly blew it out. "Evelyn, you psychotic, ungrateful little." He was using words I had never heard from him before. The terrace fell completely silent except for the faint thump of the band warming up inside for the countdown. Someone behind me actually laughed, one sharp bark that echoed across the canyon walls. Then Caroline's voice shoved its way through the speaker, high-pitched and cracking. "Baby, baby, please pick up. Please come home. We can say it was a hoax. We can fix everything. You are still our daughter." Naomi screamed over her raw and almost animal. "You jealous, talentless nobody. You just destroyed everything we built." Lucas tried the measured approach though, his voice shook with barely contained panic. "Every major firm in the country is already drafting cease and desists. You will be in federal prison by spring." Then Richard returned colder, now the businessman taking over. "Name your number. 10 million, 20, whatever it takes to make this disappear." I waited until the chaos on the other end finally ran out of oxygen. The wind off the canyon carried the scent of juniper and freedom. I lifted the phone closer to my mouth and spoke slowly, clearly, like Arctic ice. "Listen to me, because this is the last time any of you will ever hear my voice. The moment that box opened, the Roland family died. Not wounded, not resting. Dead and buried. I kept every transfer, every email, every forged page. The Internal Revenue Service has the originals. Your partners have the copies. There is no negotiation table. There is no fix. There is no more daughter, no more sister, no more safety net. You are strangers now. And strangers do not get second chances." Caroline wailed something incoherent about grandchildren she would never meet. Naomi shrieked that I would burn in hell. Lucas threatened to leak my studio finances as if I had anything left to hide. Richard tried one final time, his voice cracking. "You will regret this for the rest of your life." I smiled at the moon. "No, you will." Then I ended the call. The screen went black. I powered the phone down completely, pried out the SIM card with my thumbnail and flicked it into the pool. It vanished with a tiny plink swallowed by turquoise light. Maya handed me a fresh flute, her eyes shining. Inside, behind the glass doors, the bandleader began the countdown. 10, 9, 8. We shouted the numbers together, our voices bouncing off cathedral rock. At 3, our private pyrotechnic team ignited the first shell. At 1, the sky detonated into gold waterfalls, violet chrysanthemums, crimson hearts that bloomed and dripped like slow fire. The canyon walls glowed molten red, then gold, then pure white. Liam threw both arms around my shoulders and yelled something joyful I could not hear over the thunder. Holly jumped into the pool, fully dressed, sequins flashing like fish scales. Tristan's drone captured everything in 4K for an audience of exactly 10. I raised my glass to the explosions overhead and drank until the bubbles burned my throat. The champagne tasted like victory, like oxygen, like the first day of the rest of my life. Much later, after the fires in the outdoor pits had burned low, and the others drifted inside to collapse onto sectionals and guest beds, I stayed on the terrace alone. The canyons had fallen silent again, ancient and unmoved. I leaned against the warm stone railing and spoke into the darkness softly enough that only the desert could hear. Happy New Year, Rollins. Enjoy the consequences. 4 months later, the first certified letter from the Internal Revenue Service landed on the marble console in the foyer of the Cactus Road estate. The return address read, Department of the Treasury, Large Business and International Division. Richard signed for it with a hand that would not stop trembling. Inside was a notice of deficiency for unreported offshore income totaling $28 million. Penalty, 75% fraud assessment plus compounded interest. Grand total owed $21,412,000 and change. Payment deadline 90 days. 2 weeks later, the Dubai Sovereign Fund cancelled the joint venture letter of intent for the new marina resort. A single-line email, in light of recent regulatory concerns, we are withdrawing. The Vegas group followed 48 hours later, citing reputational risk. 2 projects, $400 million in future revenue. Gone overnight. Lucas lasted exactly 9 more days as chief financial officer. The board convened an emergency session and voted him out unanimously. Security escorted him from the building carrying a banker's box and his Harvard diploma. His LinkedIn profile remained frozen on open to new opportunities for weeks. Naomi's husband filed for divorce that same month. His attorney attached copies of the Cayman Trust documents to the petition, claiming half the hidden assets as marital property. The judge froze every account with her name on it pending forensic tracing. Country club memberships lapsed. The Range Rover was repossessed in the club parking lot while she lunched with women who suddenly pretended not to see her. Caroline's social calendar turned into a graveyard. The charity Gala.co chairs quietly removed her name from the invitation. The Phoenix Art Museum board quietly accepted her resignation. Group text chains went silent. The only notifications she received were, "So-and-so has left the group." Her daily tennis foursome dissolved without a single phone call. Grandmother Margaret summoned the 3 of them to her ranch in Paradise Valley. At 91, she still sat ramrod straight in her leather wingback chair. She slid revised estate documents across the coffee table. Richard, Caroline, Lucas, and Naomi were now listed under a single line intentionally omitted. Everything. The ranch. The commercial holdings. The foundation. Redirected to distant cousins and 3 animal rescue charities. Margaret's parting words were simple. You tried to steal from your own blood. Blood remembers. The house itself went on the market 6 weeks later. The listing photos showed the same marble console, the same infinity pool, the same red rock views, only now priced 22% below comparable properties. Buyers circled like vultures, lowballing without shame because everyone in town knew the story. Richard, aged 10 years in 4 months. The silver at his temples turned stark white. Caroline began taking sedatives at lunchtime. Lucas moved into a 2-bedroom condo near Camelback and stopped answering the door. Naomi flew to a wellness retreat in Costa Rica and never returned. The Roland name disappeared from new building cranes. Old signs came down. New letterhead was printed without the family crest. The empire did not collapse in a single night. It bled out slowly, publicly, painfully. And every step of the way the desert watched in silence. By the end of summer, I was on a one-way flight to New York with 6 crates of greenware in the cargo hold. The scandal had done what years of quiet grinding never could. It put my name in places I had never paid to reach. A small show I had done in a Phoenix warehouse the previous winter, 12 pieces invite only, suddenly resurfaced on every art blog from London to Seoul. Headlines that once read, "Roland heiress exposes family fraud," now carried new second lines. She is one of the most exciting ceramicists working today. 3 weeks after the story broke, an email arrived from Elena Maru, director of Gallery Vert in Soho. Subject line, "We would be honored." She flew to Phoenix the very next day, walked through my studio in 5-inch heels without flinching at the clay dust, and offered me an exclusive 3-year contract on the spot. Rent on a 3,200-square-foot raw loft on West 26th was covered. 2 gas kilns, a slab roller, and a ventilation system money could not normally buy were already installed by the time I landed. I moved in September. The Hudson shimmered outside the floor-to-ceiling windows every morning as I threw the first new forms of my life without a last name I hated. Collectors who once ghosted me now begged for spots on my waiting list. Museums requested loans. My prices tripled, then tripled again. None of it felt like revenge. It felt like gravity finally working in my favor. One gray November afternoon, a certified envelope arrived at the gallery desk. Return address: a law firm in Scottsdale. Sender: Richard Rowland. The receptionist signed for it and brought it upstairs. I recognized the handwriting on the front, still perfect, still arrogant. I did not open it. I walked to the post office on 28th, wrote, "Refused return to sender" in bold black marker across the seal, and dropped it back into the system. That was the last time any of them would ever reach me. Winter came early. On the first real snow day, I loaded the new 45-foot kiln for its inaugural firing. 40 pieces, tall bottles with cracked desert glazes, massive platters in iron red and ash-white bowls so thin they rang like bells. I set the program for cone 10, closed the heavy door and pressed start. The elements glowed orange through the peephole. Outside, snow muffled the city into a hush. Inside, the kiln roared like a quiet dragon. I poured myself a single mug of coffee, walked to the window, and watched flakes drift over the Hudson. My phone sat on the sill screen black for weeks. I picked it up, held the power button until the Apple icon appeared one final time, then let it die completely. No ceremony. No speech, just the soft click of a chapter closing forever. The kiln climbed past 2,000 degrees. I thought about every person who ever told me I was wasting my life in the mud. I thought about the little girl who used to hide in the pottery shed behind the mansion, because it was the only place no one followed. I thought about the woman standing here now. A studio paid for. Shows sold out through 2028. A name on waiting lists, instead of inheritance clauses. And I understood the only truth that matters. You do not need their table when you have learned to build your own. You do not need their approval when your work speaks louder than their money ever did. You do not need their love when you finally learn to give it to yourself. The kiln beeped. Cycle complete. I opened the door hours later to perfect shelves of fire, kissed clay stronger, harder, more beautiful than anything they ever touched. I smiled at the glow and whispered to no one and everyone, "This is what happens when you stop asking to be let in and start burning the door down." That was the day Evelyn Rowland disappeared for good. And Evelyn, just Evelyn, began. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Wherever you are, I hope you choose yourself, build your own table, and walk into the life that finally feels like yours. Goodbye for now, and may your next chapter be the one you've been waiting to write.